Okay everyone, this is Brandon Green, owner of Gold Element Autoworks. So I'm going to make a quick video about how to install an auxiliary input into the W221, which is the S550 in this case, and all accompanying models of that chassis, as well as the CL550 and all the models that they offer. So a lot of these come with old school adapters. I think the CL550 came with a iPod connection, which I think is like a 16-pin connection of some sort, something that's very obsolete and prehistoric. And this one came with maybe nothing. I don't think it came with any kind of connections. But I got this car used, of course, with high mileage, and it's kind of rough around the edges. But someone did do an aftermarket auxiliary input. What they did was they took this right here. This is the plug that goes into the back of the CD changer, which I pulled out. This is the CD changer. The connection right here. What they did is look at the location. You see these exposed wires. That is the ground or the negative of the RCA connection, the RCA inputs. So the white, the red, you have two ground, which are unshielded wires, exposed wires. Those are both negative. You see where they go. Look up close. Look at the connection. You see where they go. I would identify them with the pin number on the front. I guess I could still. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's like 5 over is the ground, which would be, I'm looking upside down, which I guess would be 16 and 6. Okay, so that is correct then. 16 and 6 is going to be your ground. 15 and 5 is going to be your positive input from your RCA connection. That's referring to the white, in this case, the white and the red wires. That is my positive from the RCA. The exposed wires are the negative. So you get those inside of there. I don't know if you use a clip or if you just wedge them in there. Regardless, make sure that the back of that thing right there, the CD changer, make sure it makes contact with these pins in the plug. All right, that will allow you to use your dial. Then you scroll to auxiliary. I obviously can't do it because it's not connected, but when this is turned on and activated, you scroll down to auxiliary. That is your identifying input, and then it allows you to, whatever signal you send through those RCA connections will play through your car. Very clear. And in this case, I was using my iPad, and I was using this plug right here, which converts the RCA to a standard auxiliary input plug. These right here. Ignore the yellow. That's a solo or a one signal mono plug. This right here is what I was using for the RCA. This is a left and a right signal. This is just a standard, what is that, a 2.5 or 3.5 input jack or whatever, millimeter. The standard headphone jack. That's what it converts the RCA signal to. And this allows you to plug it into your phone or your device, whatever. So that's how you create an input that you can then play an external device for your S550 or CL550 or any of the models on the same chassis. You can also then add a Bluetooth device to it as well. Any kind of Bluetooth device that takes a standard auxiliary input and converts it to a Bluetooth signal. And that's the case. If that's the case, you got to have a power source. You have to add a positive, negative. You can tap into the brown is always the negative. You tap into the positive, which is, in this case, shoot, I don't know. Which one is it? I think it's this red one right here. The one that's all taped up. That would be your turn on signal. It's either a constant 12 volts or a turn on 12 volts activated with the ignition. So I can't remember. But anyhow, if that doesn't work, you tap into your cigarette lighter input. That right there only turns on when the car is turned on. So that's another option if you want to add a Bluetooth, if you want to power a Bluetooth device and run that into your auxiliary output or input, whatever. So those are a couple of options there. I'm glad I bought this car. I'm glad that this had this already converted, allowing you to do that, because then it just gave me the idea and also the know-how to perform that type of modification to your audio input on the S550 and CL550. So I appreciate you guys watching the video. It's a real simple task to do. Just have some basic wire knowledge, electrical connection knowledge. Be careful, use a tape that's not going to come undone. Use the shrink wrap is the best stuff to use to protect your connections. If you don't solder them, or even if you do, always use that shrink wrap to protect your wires, and you're good to go. Run that wire, the cord, through here, through inside of there. You can run it out there. You can run it into the glove box. You can run it wherever you want to run it. It's easy to do. All right, so just a little ingenuity, a little creativity, and you can make your car work for you. There you go. Okay, guys, so the same thing that I just showed on the S550, I'm showing it on the CL550. Now, I already did the modification on this one, okay? So I paused the video, jumped into the CL550, pulled the radio out to see what was behind there. The difference of this vehicle and the S550 back there behind me is this one has the old school iPod connection. This right here, I don't know how many pins this is, 16, 20, 25, 30. It doesn't even matter. I think it's a 30 pin connection. Whatever it is, it's irrelevant. I don't want to use this. To buy an adapter, to try to make this work, I've done it before. The adapter didn't work. Let me show you the adapter that I tried to use. This one right here. This is the same type of iPod connection. It converts it to a charging port as well as a auxiliary input port. Neither of those worked. So I'm not going to try to make this work. Again, I wasted money on that adapter a while back for another vehicle. I tried to use it in this one. It does not work. So I'm not going to rely on the reliability of this connection. Not only is the exterior of it frayed, I can only imagine that the wires themselves have been compromised. It's a kind of a bad design. It's not reliable. It's not stable over the years. And who would have thought that an iPod would become obsolete? When this car was designed in 2008, they should have just done a regular auxiliary input. Would have been much simpler. Trying to be all high tech and stuff, they made themselves irrelevant. So anyways, with that connection existing, I have here the connections that lead to that. So it's already been tapped into the connection itself into the back of the CD changer. It already has wires coming from the 5 and the 15 and the 16 and the 6. I'm not going to disassemble it because I already have it together and it works. So all I did was just break those connections. This red, this white, and this common ground for the audio. This only went into one of them. So on the ground side, it only went into one. Like, let's just say 15 and 16 was the ground. I can't remember, but if 15 and 16 were the ground, one of them actually had a brown wire, which is the ground, the common ground to the vehicle, and the other one was this right here. Typically an RCA connection or an audio plug typically has a shared ground and a white and a red. So these are clearly easy to identify. I disconnected or cut these wires, left enough length to attach what I had used. These right here are RCA. These are the females. I took those, exposed the wires, twisted the ground together, and I had the white and the red, and I tapped into those and then did the heat shrink stuff to make it look all, nice and secure and pretty. And so it works. I did not record the process, but if you know what I'm talking about regarding wires and making connections, it's easy to do. I did not have to tap into the actual plug itself, but the wires that came out of the plug, the common ground, the white and the red. Simply cut those, splice them, connect them, and I have audio input now. So I connected it, of course, to my iPad here, and it worked flawlessly. So I now have an auxiliary input into my CL550. Again, scroll down to auxiliary, and that's what I used. I guess I can play it real quick. Hopefully I don't have copyright issues. Let me see. Can't look at that. Oh, that was some cousin. All right, so there you go. That's how you do it. Easy peasy. All right, now I'm going to reassemble this stuff back together. Well, I'm going to run this wire through here, either through the I might just tuck it down in there, have it come out of the side, or I can run it through the glove box if I really feel froggy, but I'll figure that part out. So this is done. I just got to put it all back together. This is now obsolete. I can remove that or just leave it in place. It doesn't matter. The wires that go into this right here have been disconnected, the audio and the ground. So this really is obsolete. I know that this is fed power. So I do want to make sure I don't mess that up, because this box and all this stuff right here is what comes along with that iPod connection. And so I noticed you have some power running through there in order to power your iPod. So I'm not going to even mess with that. I did what I need to do. That can remain. I don't care about that. If I want to use a Bluetooth adapter, will I feed it from the, will I do like a hard connection? Not likely. I'll just use a cigarette lighter if I want to run a Bluetooth adapter of some sort with that auxiliary input that I just created. Otherwise, I'll just, leave it as is. I could, run an iPad in here, as I did with my CL550 over there, a permanent iPad. I did that, and I have two connections. I have a charging port. I probably did a hard connection from up under the cigarette lighter, and then I have the auxiliary input plug at the top. So I might do the same thing with this one. I don't know, but you have options. Once you create this, you have options. Okay, so there you go. That's how you do it. Now again, I'm gonna take the same idea, apply it to my S550 that's behind this one, my personal S550 that's back there. I'm gonna do the same thing because there is no auxiliary input on that. So if you want to keep your factory radio and create an auxiliary input, that's how to do it. Okay, so now I'm on the other S550, and as you can see on this plug right here, there is absolutely nothing in that place where it's supposed to go. As you can see, those holes are empty. So 15, 16, where is it at? There you go. So 16, 6, 15, 5, 16, 6 is, I believe, where the ground is, and 15, 5, or I don't know, it might be just the opposite. I have to look again, but whatever. This is the plug for the S550 that has no auxiliary input of any sort. There's nothing up under there. There's nothing coming out from the side. This is definitely the base model. Had no extra toys with this one. No extra inputs, no extra jacks, anything of that nature. So you definitely have to create it. Now that radio will accept an auxiliary input, because when you turn the radio on, there does give you the option for the auxiliary, but it's not anything in this place. So I have to connect that. So, okay, so I'll hardwire these connections into that place. All right, and I'll test them out and see if they work. Okay, so the install is now complete. This is the personal S550 that had the auxiliary that was not functional. It didn't have any other added features in the glove box, nothing that allowed me access to the auxiliary input. So what I did with this one is it didn't have any wires coming out of those connections that I needed wires to come out of in order to connect to the auxiliary input on the radio there, on the CD changer. Again, this is kind of like the brain of everything. Of course, this is related to the amplifier in the back, and through fiber optics, it is all connected. Of course, also through the amplified source, the wires that feed the speakers. It's all interconnected. And so this right here is primarily the brain. If this does not function, then you don't get any functionality out of the screen. You don't get anything out of the back. Sound is an issue. So whenever you have an issue with these, you have to figure out, is it the amplifier or is it this? Typically, those are the two things that go wrong, either the amplifier or this. Anyways, so in order to feed into that, I wound up using a variety. I tested a variety of wire connections and plugs that go into the actual plug, the junction box. So I wound up having to use something similar to this. I wound up taking some things apart that I had in the garage, some connections, some plugs from other components, like from radios, aftermarket radios and decks, and also stuff from some factory decks that I had in the garage. This is basically what I needed. I needed some type of plug like this, wire with a crimped connection to insert inside of there and make connection to the back of the radio. I had to be very meticulous and very calculated, I guess, regarding my measurements and regarding the length to make sure it did contact it. It couldn't be too wide. this base right here couldn't be too thick. And so some of the ones that I had were too wide and they were too thick. This style right here, it was just a little bit too wide. I had to like kind of smash it in to make it fit, but then it didn't make contact. So I had to just play around with different ones that I had until I found something that worked. Okay, so I used a combination of the shrink wrap to cover my connections to make sure that once it was inserted into the little junction connection, the plug itself, to make sure that they didn't contact each other, make sure that the two positives were completely separated, and make sure that the negatives, of course, were separated. Even though if they touch, it doesn't make, it's not a big deal, because with RCA connections, the negatives can touch, the grounds can touch, but the positives cannot. And that's how you can differentiate the left, right, and of course the front and the rear. So anyways, it works. I did not take a video of me doing the connection on the back of this because it was too much experimentation going on. I was doing a whole lot of this doesn't work, this doesn't work. Oh, I finally found something that works. Now what's the right way of making it work and making it safe? And so I did that. I zip tied, I shrink wrap, zip tied, created extra length so that it doesn't pull. I have the wires coming from right here. This right here is my plug that goes into whatever component I decide to use, and it works perfect. All right, so that works perfect. Everything is good. All my controls work as they should. So now I have auxiliary input, functional auxiliary input on my S550. So I'm happy. There you go.